Hello everyone. Today we came back with a lecture on Polygon law of force. This is an important concept in engineering mechanics called as Polygon law of force. The concept helps us determine whether a system of force acting on a body is in equilibrium or not. Before going, we'll recall that multiple force act on a body and the combined effect is called as resultant force. Myself, Anima Ghosh, Associate Professor of Physics, SR University, Warangal, India. We know the when two force act and as a side by side and fill a triangle, so we find out the resultant force using the trigonal law of force. So this polygon law is basically an extension of the triangle law. Triangle law of force is a standard tool for calculating a system of two concurrent forces, but physical bodies rarely exist in such simple environment. What happens when a material body is subject to 4, 5 or 6 simultaneously? So we can see here that the diagonal law we just limit with a triangle this and polygon law of force. Let us consider a system here as indicating this. Yeah, so this system, if we have a multiple force like P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, and P6 in different sides, so that more than three forces is there. So in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in total 6 forces acting on the system. So what will be the resultant force of this system? So Polygon law of force translate a complex wave of multiple forces into Polygon law of forces translates a complex wave of multiple forces into a single clean geometric shape. So the statement is if a number of concurrent forces acting simultaneously on a particle or on a system and it represent in magnitude and direction by the sides of polygon as we can see in this diagram taken in order. The forces which are acting need to be in order. So then the resultant may be represented by the closed side. So let's say that this force is these are the acting and this is the last one that we can define the resultant of this system. So resultant force is nothing but the multiple force acting on a body and their combined effect is called as the resultant force. So if we construct the statement of the polygon law of force, it's like something like that if a number of forces acting on a particle can be represented in magnitude and direction by sides of a polygon taken in order, then the resultant is represented by closing side of the polygon taken in opposite order. So, what are the prerequisites for these applications to utilize the where we can apply the polygon, this law of force to find the resultants. So, to utilize the polygon law to find a resultant force, the material's body must be subjected to force that share three specific prerequisites. That first is the coplanar. Coplanar means all forces exist within the same two dimensions. So we can see that is left side this diagram, that here all the forces is within this plane, and second is the non-collinear. So in coplanar, all forces force should exist in same plane. In same plane. Second is non-collinear. This means the force do not act along a single straight line. Means the force should not present in this way. And third is the concurrent, means all force act simultaneously on a single common point or particle. Means whatever the force will be taking count for the find out the resultant force using the Polygon law, all are should simultaneously act on a single common point or particle. So these three are the prerequisite to apply Polygon law. So now coming to the how to find out. We obtain the successive arms of polygon through successive triangle process. So it's something like that, if let's say here one force is acting and another is so in this direction and another is in this direction. So we'll be find out the resultant by this. This is the resultant for first one. Let's say this is one force P1, P2. So this is the R1. And then another is applying here. So then we will be count this resultant along with this. So along with this, let's say this is P3. So then resultant will be this R2. So and so on. So similarly, if we see here in this diagram that P1 and P4 hit this force, and then we can find out the resultant this, and from here again P2 will consider and then resultant this. Similarly, if we see that P6 here and this is P5, and then we can find out. So this is the simultaneous the two force, and we will complete their triangle. So from that resultant will be again third force acting on the same body or system will be considered. So by resolving the force two at a time, we create intermediate resultant like this R1, R2, R3, etc. that build the internal structure of the final polygon shape. So to build the polygon, transition the force from the physical body into a vector diagram. So starting from a common point that they are acting from the same on the same body, plot the force in a proper magnitude and direction. Force must be plotted in successive manner and strictly in order. In order means this should be that it should be successive manner and strictly in order, that is head to tail. So if we simplify the idea that imagine a force as a vector, so we generally define as by a arrow mark, yes, and then place them as head to tail. So second is we has to place them that as head to tail, and if the last vector ends exactly where the first one started, then the body is balanced, no net force is acting. and this means the body will remain rest or move with constant velocity. So you can see something like that, that force is acting. So P1 and then P2 and then P3 in a successive way. And one more thing is here, that the force is here, it is the tail and head, and it is the again tail and head. So it will be tail, head to tail in a manner. So here the possible outcome using the polygon force is made of two types. One is the all consequent force are plotted in successive. The resultant geometric dictate the physically reality of the system. So one here it can be the shape closed perfectly. The shape closes perfectly, or a gap remains having the shape open. So if so, then you can see here that here the forces is acting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it is completing the polygon. And here you can see that forces are acting, but this dotted red line, this is the gap to complete or close the system. So there is two possibilities in geometry: close shape, and it is remains a gap remains, leaving the gap open. So in case of scenario open, that means if that means if the force is in a closed system. So if the force system keeps material body in equilibrium, a closed polygon will be formed, because the final force vector connects perfectly back to the origin point, and the resultant will be exactly 0. So this was our starting point. So this was our starting point here. It was our starting point. Then P1, P2, P3, P4, P6, P6, and it end is here. That means it is completing the polygon. So here the resultant will be, so in scenario A, the resultant R will be the 0. Scenario B, the unbalanced force. You see that here the forces is acting P1, P2 head to tail, but here have a gap. This, it is plotted as this part. So this gap, we has to connect it to find out the resultant force. So if the body is not in equilibrium under the action of force system, one side of polygon remain open. This gap represents the missing force required to balance the system, or conversely the overall net force acting upon on the body. So if we just make a chart, that concept of Polygon's law hold, then the force from a closed loop, the resultant will be R is equal to 0. That the force all should act in a same system, and then this is the force P1, P2, P3, P4, P5 and P6 completing a polygon. So resultant will be 0. Then resultant force have an gap. Let's say here this R point. Let me show with the laser pointer. So this, so here the resultant force will be the reverse in order. So this last force is acting in this downward this direction. So our resultant direction will be the reverse of this. That means you can see that this is the, so these are representing the reverse in force. So thank you very much. The Polygon law of force widely used in structural analysis of the trussed bridge. It mostly used in is usually used in civil engineering field. Engineering mechanics problem, determine bulk unknown force, stability analyze. So hope this will be helpful for analyzing the multiple forces, and it helps the understanding of force balance in truly. And if you like the my video, please click on the like button. Thank you very much.